Okay, thank you, Keith. It's my pleasure to be here, and I want to thank everybody for attending this, and certainly thank our panel members for joining us today. This is a topic that I'm very interested in. As Keith mentioned, I've been in the biotech industry for a long time, and most of my time has been spent in San Diego. In fact, I started my first company there back in 1980s. So it was very early in the kind of start of the whole biotech revolution. And at the time, San Diego was, looking to build its ecosystem and such and really become a biotech hub. And so it was my privilege and honor to be part of that and be part of growing that hub. And at one time, we were one of the most active in the world. Then Boston kind of took over from us. I've had a home here in Park City, like many other people, investors and CEOs and such, for over 20 years. And I retired, quote unquote, about 3 years ago, and have been spending more time here in Utah. And so I've gotten a little involved with BioUtah and started really looking into what's going on with the industry in this town. And my field has always been in the therapeutics, the pharmaceutical side of the business. And it really is interesting to me as I see the biosystem here in Utah grow. There's a lot of parallels with what I saw in San Diego, and I think probably going to be able to do it at a much more accelerated fashion. So this panel is definitely of interest to me to think about what's going on. I think Utah has been known more for devices and genomics and medtech than it has therapeutic development, but this is an area that I think is certainly getting some focus now and growing. And hopefully we'll talk about how these companies have grown here in the area, and we'll talk about some of the challenges and some of the advantages and all that we have here in Utah. So with that, I'd like to really turn it over to the panel members, and we'll just go down the line, starting with Flagg, to introduce themselves, but also talk about their companies a little bit and talk about how they are looking at therapeutics here in the Salt Lake City region and Utah in general. So Flagg, let's kick it off with
Very
you.
good. Good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here to talk about Discgenics but the great state of Utah and what has been offered here to us. We relocated here in 2012 from Memphis, Tennessee, where we were a startup there. We are a cell therapy. We're mid-clinical stage. The cell therapy is to regenerate a disc in your back. Very pervasive problem in the world around degenerative disc disease. We do that with an injection in a treatment room, utilizing a C-arm for guidance. And we came here in 2012. We co-located at Cell Therapy and Regenerative Medicine at the University of Utah, which was a fantastic opportunity. They helped us optimize our culture system from which we make these cells, and they did our first phase 1 clinical doses, of which we had a very, very successful outcome that now will lead to a phase 3 trial.
Thank you. My name is David Taylor. I'm with Biolexis Therapeutics. We're a small molecule company therapeutics company that we have preclinical and clinical assets. I think the thing that sets us apart is the process that we have, what's called molecular, where we can develop novel chemical entities kind of faster than we've ever been able to do it before. They have drug-like properties. They have real wet lab data behind them, and we feel like we've shaved years off of the process to find clinical agents for people. Now, as our CEO always says, the proof is in the pudding. So we just started in 2021, and we have seven entity or compounds ready to go into IND-enabling studies. So we've been able to move really, really fast. We're excited. Our team, we're all from Utah or have been here a while, and it's a great place to have a therapeutics company because, as we'll talk about, there's a lot of great things in Utah for the life science industry.
And David is kind of our representative for the finance side on the panel, so we'll come back to you.
No science questions.
But lots of finance questions, so there you go.
So I'm Rob Etherington with Clean, and we are a clinical stage nanotherapeutic company where we have taken a lead asset, CNM-Au8, and finished a number of clinical studies with it in neurodegenerative diseases. Our focus is ALS in particular, formerly known as Lou Gehrig's amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and also multiple sclerosis. We have finished altogether with that asset 5 phase 2 clinical studies and have a key meeting with the FDA coming this quarter that will give us key guidance as to move forward in the ALS space, namely because we missed primary endpoints, but the secondary endpoints we achieved were survival on both studies, and we've also seen biomarker improvement, and the FDA just granted approval a few months ago on biomarkers alone in ALS space with the company Biogen, who missed all their endpoints in their primary studies. So it's going to be an interesting ride over the next couple months, even as we plan a phase 3 for the global worldwide market and to understand what the agency wants us to do. We founded Clean originally in Palo Alto, California, but a number of our investors lived here or had roots to Utah or had homes in Park City, and they asked us to move from Palo Alto to Salt Lake, and we did that the next year in 2014 and have been here since then, and it's fantastic.
Simmerdeep Sing Gupta. I'm with Tele Pharmaceuticals. I'm on the R&D side, but Teva is established quite well in Salt Lake City. We have manufacturing facilities and also some MS&T scale-up as well. I was still in my diapers when these gentlemen were starting successful companies, so I'm really honored to be on this stage. Thank you.
So we'll go to David. So David, in San Diego, we had a core group of individuals who really helped fuel the industry. And when I learned about what was going on here in Utah, David's name came up over and over again, or Dave's name came up over and over again. And we had a gentleman named David Hale who touched every company, I think, in San Diego at some point or another, and Dave reminds me of him. So Dave,
well, thanks. Yeah, must come with the name. Yeah, you got to be a Dave to do that. So. No, excited to be here today, and I'm a Utah native, born here, so excited to see this industry grow. I've been a serial entrepreneur, been involved with several companies from the beginnings, have been able to take companies public here, have had a couple acquisitions that I've been involved with, and excited to be building a company called Halia Therapeutics that I'm currently the CEO. We're a clinical stage company. We figured out a way to turn off the machinery that really drives chronic inflammation. So we have a drug that, in fact, just yesterday or 2 days ago, I guess, we just had a site initiation visit for a phase 2 clinical trial. So we'll be kicking that off here real soon. Hopefully have the first patient treated real quickly. And we have several more that will be starting, a couple more trials that will be starting here soon. So excited to watch what's happened over the last 20 plus years that I've been involved with building companies here in Utah.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you all on the panel. It's certainly a lot of experience in what it means to develop a therapeutic company here. So other than the obvious exception of Teva, you all represent companies that have really gotten started here over the last 10 years in the therapeutic space. So I guess my question to you is, why Utah? I'm assuming you all had the potential to start this company somewhere else in Boston or San Diego or the Bay Area or whatever. What is it that is happening here, what's happening in the world that brings you to Utah? So maybe we'll start with Rob and go from there.
So that first year, 2013, was actually quite difficult. We had no money. We were raising capital. We had a lot of meetings with venture, et cetera. But to recruit people to the Bay Area was a challenge. Cost of living primarily, cost of housing extraordinarily. And I was born in Utah like Dave, but left here as a boy and spent 30 years elsewhere and didn't envision actually coming back to Utah in a biopharmaceutical capacity. I spent 9 years at Pfizer and 13 years at Europe's largest biotech, Etherington, that was subsequently acquired by Johnson & Johnson. Never envisioned coming to Utah. But many board members said, let's give Utah a serious look. The tax implications are much less here. Cost of living extraordinarily less than, a lot has changed in a decade. But it's a good place to be, and I don't think you'll have trouble recruiting. And they were categorically right. Most of our team is not from Utah, and most of our team has been recruited from outside Utah and love it here.
That's great. David, let's same question.
Yeah, I think Utah, so I'm a transplant. I was born back east. I was in New York and Washington, D.C. for a long time. So my wife's from here. So here I am, right? It's a great place. You know, I think a lot of people know that the state is very business friendly generally, and that's catching up to the great education opportunities people have here. So you put a great place to live with all the beauty that we have around here, with opportunity, with a burgeoning life science industry. I think people are starting to see that. Now you make $400,000 in Palo Alto, you can't afford a house, right? I mean, that's what we hear. I have a nephew out there, and it's just unbelievable. So I think there's a lot that goes into it that just draws people here. It's been a whole economic development over time.
Flagg?
Well, for me, my association with Utah started with a pair of skis. And I would come out to Park City with a customer, a neurosurgeon, who did a lot of business with down in Louisiana. And we would come here, and my wife from Jacksonville, Florida, took a real penchant for downhill skiing and loved it here. We put our second daughter in summer school at Auburn, and we drove a Z71 Tahoe that had 130,000 miles on it and drove out here for a summer and decided to stay. And we had incubated this company in Memphis and at a little incubator called BioWorks with the University of Tennessee. And we just found better opportunities through CTRM from the cell therapy standpoint. And we found really good people that would help us, and people that they may have not had quite the expertise, but most of it rhymed from a scientific standpoint and a support perspective. And we just grew to love this community and really built a very good culture of hard work and getting things done. We do have a powder day where you can ski all morning, get in about 2 o'clock, and you know I'm a half day guy, and I don't really care which 12 hours it is, and so you know we lights work at 12 midnight too, right? And people like that, and this guy Bob Wintelak, who was the president of Osteotech, which was a fusion biologic company acquired by Medtronic. He had done 2 tours of duty in Memphis, and he was a big outdoorsman, and I knew he wasn't going to go back to Memphis. So I had to get him attracted to someplace else, and he came out here and went nuts. You know, big backcountry skier, all this stuff. So we've used that as the attractive piece of bringing people in where we've needed them, but we've also really tried to work from within the community and bring people that we feel have the capabilities to do the work, and then we do the things that are necessary to bring them up to speed, and we drive a culture of, you know, it's all patient-driven and patient-focused, period. All we really care about is getting from the scientific, translational, to the preclinical, then to the patient in the clinic, and now finally for the phase 3 so that we can help millions and millions of people around the world, having been in this space for a long time, 30 plus years. And Utah's been the attraction. And amazing people, amazing work ethic, and it's a very attractive place for people to come.
Okay, so David is somebody who grew up here at all. I'm interested to hear your perspective on
Yeah, so Halia is easy to answer why Halia is here, because I'm here and I'm not leaving. So I'm not going to put a company anywhere else. But for me, I left. I went to BYU as an undergraduate, went to University of Texas, got my PhD there, and I trained with a really famous cancer researcher, a guy named Dan Von Hoff. And Dan's run more than 500 phase 1 clinical trials in his career. So he's, I got to watch probably 100 new agents into the clinic when I worked with Dan, and really helped me understand the whole process of what makes a successful program and what maybe not such a successful program. So learned a lot from both the failures and successes. So I moved with Dan to the University of Arizona. He became the cancer center director there, and I had a faculty position. And for whatever reason, so I had a pretty good sized lab. I probably had 40 people working in my lab at one point in time, and about half of those people came from Utah. the students would just find me. They were like, "Oh, you're from Utah. I want to come work." And people would always say, "How did you find these really good people?" I was like, "Well, they're from Utah." That's where good people come from. So when we had a chance to start my first company, which I started more than 20 years ago, we had actually licensed technology out of my lab at the University of Utah, and I made the decision to walk away from a tenure track faculty position I had 2 R01 grants, I had a lot of good things going on, and just decided if I want to see this stuff that I've been working on move forward, that nobody believes it more than I do, and I'm probably the best person to move it forward. And so the next thing we had to decide is, well, where are we going to do this? And the obvious place would have just been to stay there in Tucson. But for me, I just thought, hey, I built a successful laboratory research group in Arizona, all with people from Utah. Why didn't I just go to Utah and build a research group there? And the first, we showed up here, and the first person I talked to was Dinesh Patel, who's a very famous pharmaceutical person here in Utah, and he told me, "You're crazy. This is never gonna work, right? Don't do this." And we were the only therapeutics company in Utah at the time. There was nobody else. It was just us, and so learned a lot. But I think over the years, it's changed so much, and all the things these guys have just said, it's been amazing to watch. We can get whoever we want to come here. It's people used to tell me there's no way in the world people are going to leave the Bay Area or leave San Diego or leave Boston to come here. But we've had a great experience being able to go after good experienced people and bring them here, and just the quality of life here is great. I think that the workforce here of people that have actually trained and grown up and live here is amazing. I think there's a culture here in Utah of people that want to work hard and be successful, and that works really well for startup companies. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Great. So, Simmer, you represent, the only person on the panel represents a worldwide major pharma company that came here to Utah. So I'd really be interested in kind of hearing your perspective on what you've seen here in Utah and how it plays into the whole therapeutic area.
I moved to Utah not too long ago, so whatever perspective I'll give you is based on my little experience I have here. What I've heard time and again is mainly two things why Teva is established and doing well here in Utah. One is the cost of operation. As compared to, let's say, California or the East Coast, the cost of operation here in Utah is quite friendly for a business, which is particularly manufacturing as well. And the second thing that I've time and again heard is the workforce itself. The people here are awesome in two ways. One way is the talent itself that we have here, the talent pool that we get from the local area universities is quite good, and they work well, not only executing certain tasks, but as a team as well. There is a very good camaraderie and a family-like value that sort of brings them together in a workplace as well. And second is stability. In terms of what the stability that they are seeing in terms of their cost of living and other things, bringing up a family, that's why they're sticking to Utah. And secondly, stability in terms of the duration they stay with the company. They don't move around too much. They're happy in the way, in the company that they're working at. And I've seen 20, 25, 30-year anniversaries being celebrated at Teva at the sites in Utah, which is really good to see.
So it's interesting as I listened to all that, one of the common themes was it's really been, I'll use the word easy to recruit people to Utah for various reasons. Some of them are just structural reasons and the environment and all of that. You know, in San Diego, we were really focused on therapeutics and such right from the get-go. And when we started moving into more development and certainly marketing and such, one of the things we found is it was very hard to attract people into the environment because in Boston, if you're working for a cell therapy company or whatever, you can walk across, and that company doesn't do well, you can walk across the street and get a job. You're all developing in an area that is kind of new to Utah, therapeutics, and so there isn't a huge infrastructure of therapeutic companies here. Has that been at all a barrier? It sounds like it's not. I'm surprised to hear that. Anybody want to take that one? David?
Yeah, no,
Dave?
I think that certainly 20 years ago was a lot different than it is now. So getting senior experienced people, especially in like regulatory people, are tough because their jobs are very specialized. I think a lot of the technical folks can morph themselves into kind of different areas. I think it's harder for quality and regulatory people to do that. So I think that's early on it was really challenging, and I think we had to rely on consultants and contract work a lot. But now, you know, I think that you know, people, I don't know whether it's because the industry's matured, which it certainly has here, or whether people are more used to you know, taking risk and having you know, remote work available to them as well. I think that plays into it. But we've had really not a hard time in finding even senior, very specialized people on the manufacturing, on the regulatory and quality side of things. So yeah, I think that you know, we try to really emphasize the real selling points here. And you know, one thing, probably one of the things I'm most proud of, my last company I started, Tolero, we, at one point in time, we went 5 years without having a single person leave the company.
Wow.
I mean, that's unbelievable to think about that. And, you know, from an employer and you know, executive side of things, that's amazing. From the employee side of things, I hope that means they're happy or they don't just have other options to go to. But it's great, you know, to have people that you know, come here and are that committed and loyal to stay. And I mean, that's one of the hard things. I know I have a lot of friends in the Bay Area and Boston, and you know, especially with younger scientists and younger technical folks that are trying to move up the ladder, they just move jobs. You know, every 18 months they're moving, and it's tough for them to build cohesive teams when they have so much turnover. And I think it's one of the great things about being here is when you get people here, they tend to stay for a long time.
And kind of adding to that, so in the last 9 years that we've been here, I can count on one hand the senior people, manager and above, that have left. So it's kind of a similar experience to Dave's at Tolero. And you can say, well, it's the company. It's not only that, it's also the place. 2 of these individuals that have left, they are still here working in different companies remotely. And I imported both of them. They both came from elsewhere, from the East Coast, and they both have said, I'm never leaving Utah. And so in all the cases of when they were looking for new gigs, they're like, I'm only doing it if you let me live here and commute or work remote for you. So that just, I think, speaks to the power of the pull of the place. But it is a concern still. I mean, there's the other side, which is we definitely need an infrastructure like we have in San Diego, or we have in Cambridge, or we have in the Bay Area, where there's a lot of different jobs. So this, and I would add Denali and very critically recursion onto the equation and many others. This is only the beginning. We have a lot more work we need to do.
I want to reinforce that because it is, and we are beginning to build an ecosystem. And Simmerdeep, don't come after with your microphone, but we have had some people that have joined us from your company. And that's
yeah, thanks.
And we've had interesting. We've had people that have come in that were doing device quality and they were trying to cross over to pharma quality and they couldn't, and they went back to the device side. We, happy to do that. I mean, and that's part of the ecosystem we're beginning to build here. And that is something we need to do. And you're going to have bigger companies that will allow for people that want to expand, or they're attracted by the startup mentality, which has a deep history of innovation and entrepreneurship that really is nested almost hereditarily in this valley, and they are attracted to more startup specifics. And I think that's the beauty of what's forming here as an ecosystem. And it's phenomenal to see it take bloom, and certain people from bigger companies begin to look at us as a place where there's some pretty cool stuff being developed from a therapeutic standpoint.
And just adding to that, we just hired somebody from and we are so grateful that they're here, actually, because
They set up the system.
we need big companies. And so this is something I think that all of us, it's incumbent upon us to work through our networks, because we need to get R&D labs from the Pfizers and the Johnson & Johnsons, and I can go on, and the TVs. We're so grateful that you started this, because whether it's an established company at revenue or a startup, we need more and more infrastructure, and to the degree that we can all help bigger companies discover Utah and base here, then we will become a Cambridge, we will become a San Diego, we will become a Bay Area.
Yeah, you are becoming, not will, are becoming.
I think of it like a coral reef. Like, that's what we're building. It's living, it's ongoing. When we have a Teva come here or a Tolero sale, those big events put us on the map. And people know. People outside on the East Coast, the West Coast, internationally, they know, right? So I think that really helps as well. How many press releases or big events have happened over the last 5 years, 7 years? It is building for sure.
Yeah. So, Simmerdeep, did you steal from them when you came? Where did your team come from when you
Not
got
yet.
here? No, but really, did you recruit mainly from Utah when you came here, or bring in?
We've had people move in from out of state as well, but mainly we've seen that a lot of talent that we have is from Utah only. That said, last year I had an open position under me, and when I had publicized that on different platforms, we got over 120 applications for that position, and I would say 95% were out of Utah. But that said, we have some talent within the state itself, and given the fact that we have such great universities which have really solid programs that we have seen in the past few years, which have grown tremendously, and especially in the pharma space, I'm really excited to see that these universities will produce a lot of local talent, which will eventually be absorbed in these companies.
Okay. So we're hearing a lot about what's going on here in Utah. So what are, in San Diego, one of the things that I think really set us apart early on was it was a very collaborative, very close-knit community that was building the ecosystem there. And I'm sensing that here as well. Certainly, I'll plug BioUtah, our conference coordinators here. But what other avenues have you been able to utilize here in Utah that's helped you build your company? What positive things are going on here? I mean, there's the University of Utah, there's various other things. So maybe we'll start down on that end and work our way down.
Sure, yeah. So, I'm glad you brought up the University of Utah, because, the University of Utah, at the same time we've been trying to build this industry, has been growing like crazy as well. And I think they've reached almost $1 billion a year in research funding at the university, which puts it in the top tier of research universities in the country. And having a world-class medical school and integrated healthcare campus up there, spawns a lot of innovation, a lot of opportunity, and I think that's a key component to not just what we've built, but what we can build as well as we continue to move forward. Utah has the youngest population in the country, and so we have a lot of students. And there's, I think, from where we sit here within a 40-mile radius of this place, there's over probably 120,000 undergraduate students here in this area. And there's a tremendous opportunity to leverage all of that, for growing this industry, to get people exposed to the types of jobs that are available and working in partnership with the university. We've had a lot of connections there. I've been a professor there, still have an appointment at the University of Utah, and so spend a lot of time trying to work that as part of the equation of how we build this ecosystem. I think one of the big challenges that still exist and that we haven't really figured out how to solve is early funding for startup companies, and that's been really probably the hardest thing for us in terms of building this. And it's a little bit of a virtuous cycle. People will invest when they see success, but if you don't have money, it's hard to build successful companies without investment. So it's we're starting to show a successful track record. We have companies that have had successful sales, successful IPOs. We've got Recursion, Denali's, moving a lot of things here to Utah, and their management team is really dedicated to help support and build things here. Keith and I have been working on a lot of opportunities to get dedicated funding for life science companies, and I think that's going to be a big part of the equation moving forward. And we're trying to make it easier for these technologies to come out of the university and to move into companies as well. And so we have a lot of things we're working on. We're building incubators here to help reduce the capital equipment costs that people have to, one of the hardest things for me is you go out and raise money and raise $5 million seed round, and you have to spend $2 million on equipment. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's like really, really hard. So if you can kind of lower that activation energy and not have those types of obstacles and get people into shared equipment and incubator space, I think that solves a lot of those problems. So yeah, that's I think things that we still need to solve to get to the next level.
What other things facilitate growth here in Utah for you? Is there anything else you guys want to point to and
Go ahead, Vlad.
talk about?
Sure. One thing that we've delved into is having interns, mostly from the University of Utah. We've had a total of 9 interns so far. We were kind of getting our feet wet with the first 3 or 4. We did originally hire an intern that came from the University of Oklahoma, and she is a chemist with us today. And today now we have, out of those first 4, we did hire one who is absolutely doing incredible work in our quality department. He gets more validation things done as we're driving towards our CMC validation to make our phase 3 clinical cells than any guy I've ever seen. He's just amazing. We have 4 other interns that they're in various aspects of our business who are doing great, and we probably will hire half of those, maybe even all of them, depending on kind of what they want to do. Some of them are a little bit in a little bit different from things they wanted to do to the things that we had internships for, but we're working through that, and they get into the system. They see the culture, they see the work, but they have this existing very good work ethic that they start with, which really helps us, and I think that really bodes well as we blossom as a community here in the drug space. And the other thing that's really important, and I'm going to tell you, some of these gentlemen today, I've met them in person for the first time. We've talked a lot. We've looked at each other through terminals, but I think that's going to be the next kind of big step up, because I've already got meetings with a couple of them to talk about possible synergies that we could have in working together. So it's really cool, and there are a lot of neat things around cell manufacturing we may do in concert with the U in terms of moving to a more commercialized standpoint and helping companies do that who want to do their own manufacturing, where we could be that intermediate assist to get them to their own manufacturing as opposed to using a CDMO. So it's really an exciting time.
And Paul, I want to make a couple more comments on Dave's point about money. First of all, I applaud what Keith, Marmer, and Dave are doing on working to solve venture cap here in the state. To have organic funds that are really built here is a critical thing that we need. I think Silicon Slopes has helped us actually quite a bit to have more VC eyes on the state. And BioUtah has made this a mission to get more eyes on fiscal capital raising too. However, there is a lot of money in the state, a remarkable amount, and it might not be tied to VC necessarily, but there's a lot of interested parties in biotech. Clean in particular, just to give you an example from ourselves, we've raised about $200 million in public and private markets, and about 100 of that is based here, is money that is either connected in some deep fashion to either Utah or Colorado, our neighbor to the east, and these are folks that are passionate about developing this marketplace and recognize that it takes capital. And so I think that as we work collectively to continue to get a laser beam on the need for more financing from venture and otherwise, but also in startup capital raising from a lot of the family private offices, which is how I really started. Almost all of our capital was family private office money, who wanted to tiptoe into biotech and then started putting their money where their mouth is. And I think that the point you made earlier about all the connections and the interconnections in the state, and that exists for a number of reasons, but we can lever these. So I wanted to just make the point that if somebody needs money, Salt Lake's actually a pretty good place to try to build a network to get it.
Yeah, I did want to come back to the finance side of it and talk a little bit more about that, so I appreciate you kind of weighing in on that. Again, I'm going to refer back to San Diego a little bit. So at Biocom, which is our BioUtah equivalent in San Diego, one of our goals early on after forming was to bring more VCs to San Diego, and we made multiple efforts to do that. I can tell you we failed miserably, and we still have failed. Even to this day, we still don't have a robust VC community in San Diego, and I do believe it has had a negative impact on us, because VCs want to play in their own backyard oftentimes, and not having them there was a challenge. So I'd like to hear from the others here how you financed, how has that been a challenge, how do you view that whole question?
On our end, it's a little bit interesting. I sold my first surgical device distribution business to a Japanese trading company, and with the advent of the Abe government and the regenerative medicine legislation there in Japan, we went to Japan because there was a big need for their aging population for degenerative disc disease, and they welcomed us with open arms. So we've gotten quite a bit of investment from Japan. We have received quite a bit of investment here in America, of course, and from high net worth and ultra high net worth mostly. We do have some small VCs from Japan that are involved, and we haven't done as much in Utah as I would like to have done, but I do believe that what Keith and David are doing really will tend to bring forward as y'all bring in additional LPs and stuff. I think that's going to really help because you can begin to see that this thing is going to take off and be very successful and create lots of jobs and lots of opportunity for investment and a good return on that investment.
Yeah,
think there are different-
This is your point here, CFO.
I think there are different kinds of smart money, right? There are VCs out there that know every little thing about every molecule and every medical device. But there's other kinds of smart money. As Rob and Dave said, there's people here, and this is part of just being in Utah. There's money, and they're smart in their own way. They may not know molecules, they may not be a PhD in whatever, but they know, like a lot of VCs, I mean, you can go to the best VC in the world, and what do they tell you? We invest in the team, right? And so as we have these guys here and all the people in the crowd, when we have good people here, you're going to be able to get that money in, at least to start. I do believe in the coral reef theory where it's going to grow, and the more success we have, the more money we'll be able to attract. I also am super excited about Dave's efforts in getting, bring VC local and that can have boots on the ground here to then leverage off East and West Coast money.
Yeah.
But, we've found a way to do it. And I think that the East and West Coast money are going to see the returns that are happening here, a la Tolero, and their eyes are going to open and they're going to come because there's money to be made.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the comment on teams because I think it's really important. And, one of the things we found in San Diego, we often had hard time keeping companies there as they matured and, big pharma would swoop in and buy them. But that actually seeded the industry significantly in San Diego. So as these companies got acquired, the people just spun out and started new companies, and I'm sure that's is happening. It's going to happen even more here as this sector goes. We're almost out of time. Anybody else want to comment on the finance side? Actually, David, I'd like to give you a chance to do a plug for what you're doing.
Yeah, so a lot of you probably know Keith, and Keith's the chair for this session, but Keith and I have worked together closely for the last 5 years or so. Keith's position at the University of Utah is the Chief Innovation Officer and the head of the Technology Transfer Office there, the Pivot Center. We were trying to solve the same problem that everybody has at universities is how do you create more success of licensing out technology generated at the university? And the other part of that equation is how do you fund that stuff and as it comes out? And so we spent a lot of time thinking about how we could accelerate and add to the development inside the university, but then it's glaringly obvious, well, how do we fund the stuff that that comes out? And so we came to the conclusion that we looked at all the data and all the opportunity and said there's an opportunity to raise a fund specifically focused on life science companies here, and so we've put that together. We're hopefully have a announcement that we can make here real soon that we'll be closing the first fund will be a $60 million fund, so it's not massive, but it's big enough that we can invest in 10 to 15 companies, and what our goal would be is to drag along with us, syndicates from the Bay Area and from Boston to say, hey, we'll lead this round. We'll put real money in, but we want to bring some real blue chip venture groups with us to invest in early stage companies here and even later stage companies here. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, great. And when you say life science companies, you really want to kind of focus on the therapeutic area and help build that.
I think just from a return on investment, the opportunities are bigger, the risks are bigger on the therapeutic side, but the opportunities are bigger there. But we're agnostic across. We'll invest in diagnostics and medical devices as well, but probably a good chunk of the focus will be on the therapeutic side.
Okay, Keith is starting to get nervous over there. So I think you can see we could go on for another hour easily and continue this discussion. So I really want to thank the panel members. I want to thank the audience for being here. And I'm really excited to watch how this sector of the Utah biosystem grows. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.